Okay.
Hello, welcome to our channel. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Hannah.
And together we're the Hannahs. So Hannah, what time is it?
It's book o'clock. So today, since this is our first video, we'd like to just introduce what this channel is about. So originally, we decided we wanted to do a YouTube channel, but we didn't know what we wanted to do it about, and honestly, we're not funny. So we couldn't do vlogs. So we tried to think of what our strongest suit was, and it's definitely reading, because we are very avid readers. So
basically for this channel, we're just going to be discussing the kind of books that we like to read and reviewing them. We'll talk about what we like, what we dislike, things like that. If the book or the book series has a movie adaptation, we'll talk about that in some cases. We also have another channel where we mostly do movies and TV shows, so we won't go too into depth with that. We'll also take recommendations for books that you want us to read and do a book review about. And what else?
that basically describes our channel.
All right.
We're also hoping to get kids or other people more involved with reading, because we know that that's kind of an issue where people just don't tend to like to read, and I find that really surprising because it's just such a great way to like relieve stress and just lose yourself and into your imagination and just get away from your problems. So, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about the book series called, well, it's the Stephanie Plum series. But the first book is called One for the Money. Each one is numbered, and it goes up to, I think, 28. That includes in between books. Okay, so I want to talk to you about how I found this series and why it's my favorite series. So I was in school one day, went to the library, and I just happened to find like a random book. I was like, what looks good? And I just grabbed it, and I started reading it, and I fell in love, like, instantly. And then get to the end of the book, and it was like, okay, here's the first chapter of book 1. And I'm like, excuse you? There's a book 1? Mind you, I read what's called Visions of Sugar Plum, so it was one of the in-between books. So luckily, it didn't have anything to do with the actual plot. It just had, like, this side character that kind of comes in and, like, messes some things up. But, you know, he gets his own series later, so he's cool. But anyways, so I decided I wanted to start reading the actual series, and I went to grab book 1, and I started reading it, and my grandmother, who is also a very avid reader, she always is looking for books from me that we could talk about and to read together. So I showed her the book series, and she loved it. She was just so interested in it, and then I decided to see if I can get my mom interested in it. And I showed her the books, and she was like, I've read these. Well, at least I've read a few of these. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, why'd you stop reading it? And she's like, I found it boring. She's like, but I got them from your grandmother. And I'm like, what? But I showed these to Grandma, and she said she loved them. And my mom was like, no, she gave them to me because she got to about book 3 and said she didn't like book 3 and didn't want to finish the series. So it turned out that my mom had all of the books, so I didn't have to go searching for them, thank God. But apparently book 3 is a very hard book to get through, so both my grandmother and my mother stopped at book 3. But since I was so interested in the books, and I had pushed through book 3, and I had convinced my grandmother that they were so good, she read past book 3 the second time. And she's actually ahead of me in the books right now because I get very easily frustrated. And then, of course, knowing she was an avid book reader, I got her into the series, and we both like instantly, like, we read the series in probably about like 2 weeks for all the books.
It took me about a day to get through just about each book except book 3.
Yeah.
It took me a couple days to get through it.
Yeah, I
didn't want to, but then you're like, no, you have to
you have to get book 3. No. And this series is my absolute favorite book series that I have ever read, and I tend to try to get everybody in. Why we're starting with this one is because I try to get as many people involved in the series as possible. My Aunt Cheryl is actually in the middle of it right now, and she started like
I want to reread it.
Yeah, she started it a few weeks ago, and she's already on book.
I might be taking
11.
book 1 home with me today.
Oh,
I'll take book 1 and 2 because actually you might as well just take all 3 because you'll have them back by Friday.
But yeah, so that's the series that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about the plot and then what frustrates us and what we like about it.
Alright, so to get started about the series, I'll introduce the main character. Her name is Stephanie Plum. She used to be a lingerie buyer for Macy's, and she ends up getting fired. At this point, she can't pay her rent, her car just got repossessed, and her fridge is completely empty, so she's in a rough spot. So she goes to her cousin Vinny, who owns a bail bond, and she ends up working for him as a bounty hunter. So the entire series basically follows Stephanie and her partner Lula, who was a former prostitute in book 1. It follows them through their adventures on getting FTAs, failure to appears, which are people who got sent out on bail and went to Vinny to get the bail money. And Vinny bails them out. Vinny bails them out of jail, and they end up failing to appear to their court date, which means that you sent out bounty hunters in order to get them and bring them to jail so that they can reschedule.
Because otherwise, Vinny loses out on his money.
Yeah. And so the bounty hunters end up getting 10% of the money that...
of the bail.
Of the bail.
So, yeah, that's basically the main plot is her bounty hunting adventures. Then the subplot is her love triangle with Joe Morelli and Ranger,
which is his street name.
Yeah. Oh, Joe Morelli is one of the main love interests. He's from the Burgh, just like Stephanie. They actually grew up together. They lived next door to each other basically all their lives. They've had a lot of complications in their relationship since the beginning, since they were like 6 years old. Romantic versus hatred for each other. And so when Stephanie finds out that Joe is the person that she needs to capture in book 1, she's really excited because she wants to take him down because she's just so upset about what happened between the two of them. After book 1, though, like, the relationship really develops. It's complicated because of her other love interest, which is Ranger.
Yeah, so Ranger is also a bounty hunter, but he only works high-profile cases. So because he's so good at his job and Stephanie is so horrible at her job, she ends up going to him for help, especially to take down Morelli because it's a high-profile case. She goes to him for help, and basically throughout the series, he kind of becomes her mentor on most cases. He helps her out most of the time or whatever. So eventually that mentoring student relationship ends up evolving, and he ends up having feelings for her.
Yeah, and she reciprocates the feelings as well.
Yeah, she also
Despite being in love with Morelli, she's also in love with Ranger.
Yeah. So yeah, she loves both of them, so it becomes this sort of love triangle, and it messes up her personal life, and it also messes up her professional life.
Because Joe is a cop, so she works with him a lot with cases, but yeah, she's also working with Ranger with cases, so a lot of the times Ranger and Joe end up running into each other, and Ranger knows from the beginning that she's romantically involved with Joe because she tells him about their history from day 1, because she explains why she wants to take him down. And then Joe realizes later that Ranger actually loves her, but it's been obvious with Morelli from book 1. So it becomes really complicated, and it messes up her entire life, basically. And the love triangle continues all the way throughout, even the new books. It's still ongoing.
She hasn't picked anyone.
She hasn't picked anyone. So now that leads us into what we talk about next, which is things that frustrate us and things that we like about the book series. So I think that is the only thing that frustrates us about the book series, because the book series is just so amazing. So our biggest thing that we want to talk about for frustrations is just the love triangle, because you want her to pick somebody, but at the same time you don't want her to pick somebody. So it's very aggravating that, like, you don't know what you want from the book series, but it's also very aggravating because it's like it's been so long and there's no even inclination of who she's gonna pick.
The book is amazing. The characters are great. The plot is good. There's basically no plot holes, which is really rare. which is really rare when it comes to a book. There's always plot holes. The characters are awesome. Anywhere from Lula, a former prostitute who turned bounty hunter, or Stephanie is a great character, although she can get frustrating sometimes. you completely fall in love with Ranger Morelli, which makes everything so frustrating. You actually get to meet Stephanie's family also, her mom, her dad, and then her grandmother. And her grandmother is the best character in like the entire series.
Oh my god.
Like her grandmother's great. She's like completely crazy. And like she's always trying to go on like bounty hunting missions with Stephanie and it's amazing.
It ends up so bad.
You can really tell who Stephanie takes after.
Yeah, definitely.
Another thing we really liked is that they actually made a movie off the first book. They think the movie was amazing.
Yeah,
they did such a great job making that movie.
Yeah, I think anybody who actually read the books and then watched the movie were so happy by the way that they did it. But the way that they did the first one was just really, they did it so well.
There was a couple differences.
Technically there's 3, but like the 2 of them are like the same. It's just like the character descriptions don't completely match the
which isn't
movie.
Too bad because
it happens
their
all the
acting
time.
makes up. So like their physical descriptions don't match, but their acting makes up for it. And then the ending, it's the same exact thing happens. It just happens in different places. Like in the movie, it all happens in the same place, and it gets it done and over with. The movie ends, and it's great because like it wraps it up really nicely. In the book, it happens in a slightly different location, and it takes a little bit longer, which works for the book. But for the movie, I see why they wrapped it up quickly.
Because like most of the action happens in the one location, and then in the book, they end up moving it to like her apartment just for like a tiny little bit of it before the book ends.
Yeah.
But instead, the movie just takes all the action and just keeps it at the one place, so you're not transitioning, and it wraps it up like very nicely. And like the thing with the characters is, it's just it's the love interest. It's Joe and Ranger, because Joe in the book is a strong Italian guy. He's black hair, brown eyes that turn milk chocolate when he's aroused. Like that's his description. But in the movie, blonde hair, blue eyes. So it was kind of off-putting, but like the way the actor did it, like props to him. He did such a good job at portraying Joe that you basically overlook that he doesn't look exactly like Joe.
Yeah.
And then the only difference with Ranger is that Ranger is known for his long hair that's tied up in a ponytail.
At least in the first book.
And through most of the book, there's only one where he actually cuts it. Yeah. But in the movie, he has a buzz cut because it's like supposed to be military cut. And
not gonna lie, I liked it a lot better.
Yeah, because it shows his military background, because Ranger was part of the military. That's
Secret Forces, right?
Yeah, that's why Special Forces. That's why his nickname is Ranger, because he was a Ranger in the military. Yeah. So it just kind of like shows you more. Like, it just portrays that more, like, just to kind of give him more of a background. But other than that, those are the only like, few things that the movie changed. But it wasn't.
But other than that, the movie was great. The characters were great. The acting in that movie was absolutely amazing. That's it. Please like and subscribe and follow us on all of our social medias that will be posted in the description down below.
Also, don't forget to comment books that you would like us to read or do a video about.
Thanks for watching. Yay!